Welcome, everyone. I'm Alfred Lambremont Webre, and it's an extraordinary privilege and a cosmic pleasure to be here today with a leading expert on the advanced civilization on our solar system neighbor, the planet Venus, Dr. Raymond Keller, who's written a whole number of books on the intelligent civilization on Venus. And today we'll be covering his book, The Vast Venus Conspiracy. Welcome, Ray.
Thank you, Alfred. It's a pleasure to be here with you and your audience.
Great. I just have a few preliminary questions before I understand that you have a very comprehensive PowerPoint, and you'll be able to share that with our audience. I just have a few questions, if I might.
Yes.
Yesterday, I had the great fortune of purchasing a number of books by two other Venus contactees, Venus residents. One is Umnek, Umbre Umnek,
Oh, I'm neck on neck.
autobiography and her spiritual diary. And the second is Lady Columba. I have her audiobook. And I wanted to ask, do you want to cover that in this interview, or would you rather cover I'd like to interview you about those two books because I can't interview them. And I understand that you have a connection to those two books in the sense that you offered them. Would you be willing to be interviewed about those two books?
Oh, yes, no problem. I'd be happy to answer any questions about Venus or any of my Venusian friends. And Omnek Onek is a very good friend.
Oh, good. So should we schedule that as a separate interview, or should we do it in this interview?
Yeah, this one is fine. I'm going to be with Omnek in a few weeks at the Mount Shasta Summer Conference.
Okay, so we should cover the autobiography and spiritual diary of Omnek Onek in this interview, and also the book of Lady Columba in this interview.
Yes, that would be fine.
Okay, good. Number one. Number two, your own 2-week journey to Venus, an account of how you got there and back, the places you visited, the people and events you saw, descriptions of them. I haven't run across that in any one of your books. Is that published in any one of your books?
Oh, yes. Well, there's 7 books particular to Venus so far, and I cover many of the aspects in that. And I do also have a PowerPoint based on many questions that people ask me about life on Venus.
Yeah,
And
but your particular journey, have you done a PowerPoint on your journey? This,
yeah, yes, I have one like that.
yeah. Do you want to do that in this interview or in a separate interview?
Maybe a separate one.
Okay,
Yeah.
so could I email you and set up a good date for you?
Sure. Yeah, that would be fine.
Okay, great. Um, Let me just say, uh, uh, okay, now, um, uh, Robert Potter, uh, this is a question, and perhaps you have it covered in the PowerPoint to come. Robert Potter, you and I had the privilege, along with Danny Morone in Argentina, of being on the last, as far as I know, the last interview that Robert Potter, the late and beloved Robert Potter did while he was still alive, which occurred on the day before Good Friday, on Holy Thursday of this year, on April 17th, 2025. And in that interview, Robert Potter stated that there were approximately 12,000 individuals from Venus that were scattered around planet Earth, many of them in crucial roles in governments to keep the planet stable, and that at any one time there were 50,000 technical observers from Venus observing planet Earth to keep the planet stable.
Yeah.
All those two figures. Also, in the Vast Venus Conspiracy, you give a very extended description of the exchange between late President Richard M. Nixon, who oversaw the moon landing, and the man who was in charge there, I forget his name right now.
Oh, that was the one that picked the landing site was
Yeah.
actually Dr. J. Allen Hynek
Right, right.
from Northwestern University. He went out to Corrales, New Mexico in 1966 to the Lunar Observatory to pick the landing site where the astronauts would go on the Sea of Tranquility.
Uh,
And the reason that they chose that was because it's immediately south of the Aristarchus crater, where they were detecting some high energy radiation signatures and these red pulsating intermittent lights that were emanating from the crater, and they wanted the astronauts to check them out because they suspect that it wasn't a natural phenomena because the flashes were, at a regular pulse, and uh, and they felt that it was some kind of alien base.
right. And I was amazed that in your book you describe a very open conversation that Richard Nixon had about there being extraterrestrials uh, at the moon, uh, at the landing site in the Sea of Tranquility. And Nixon is saying, well, you're not going to fob that explanation off on me because I know that they're extraterrestrials on the far side of the moon. I couldn't believe what I was reading. Now, my question is this, and maybe it'll come up in the PowerPoint and you don't have to answer it now, okay? Here's my question, and I'm not trying to be skeptical in a negative way. If the Venusians are, if in fact, are commanders of the moon base, and they exhibit the high level of technology that occurred with their interaction with Richard Nixon, with J. Allen Hynek, with the U.S., and then when the Americans were going to go the second time, they sent a message to say, these are the places you can't come back. I mean, it's high technology messaging to the Americans going, blah, 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 blah. And then are we to expect that R. Raines is traipsing around the Earth as the moon commander? It's just implausible. I mean, to me, the moon commander would be like high tech, and you wouldn't put a moon commander just traipsing around the US, and the two don't compete. The compute,
Well,
Why?
they come back and forth from the Earth to the moon and other planets. They come at will, and when they have certain missions to accomplish.
Uh-huh. So, but our range doesn't seem like a high-tech military commander of the sort to command the moon against the Americans, against all sorts of space forces out there. I mean, you have like, you have sort of a Buck Rogers type figure. You can address that. Why is it that the people that we see as the Venusians here just seem like ordinary Earth people who don't, in their red rays, kind of cutesy girls, and they don't seem at all like space creatures. The one who seems anywhere near like a space creature, because she's lovely but very old, is Omnek. You know what I'm saying? They just don't fit central casting. And I wonder if that's something you could address in your
Oh,
PowerPoint.
sure, sure. I'd be happy to do that. Well, the original, excuse me, that phone's ringing in the background there. The original um, uh, uh, drawings and accounts were provided by the contactees in the 1950s, particularly Annabelle Krebs, Lady Columba, and she does drawings of Aura Rhanes and others that are on the moon base and also on coming back and forth to the Earth.
Ah, uh, I'm, I, I'm not sure that that responds to my question. Uh,
Oh yeah,
I,
they look like us, and of course some of these other contactees in the 1950s, like George Adamski and Truman Bethurum, explain that the Venusians are in contact with people at all levels of government in many, many nations, and they look essentially physically like we do.
like we do. What I explained to Andy Bashago just a few minutes prior to our talking was that Venus is an ascended planet and that it's been photographed. The surface, I've seen a photograph of it having a rocky surface, but it's up at the fifth and sixth dimension. And it's at that dimension that the inhabited portions exist. Was I correct in stating that?
Um, yes, although they're in our physical dimension, in the third dimension, there is a civilization underground on Venus. And when Valiant Thor was here, he talked about it with President Eisenhower.
Oh, so underground, right. Okay, well, though I have no further questions. I'll be in touch with you about about your 2 week journey to Venus, about your PowerPoint.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good. So over to you. You can share screen and you can present uh, your
Okay.
your PowerPoint of the vast Venus conspiracy.
All righty. Let's see. And so to do this, I go to share. Okay. And okay. All right. And I want to go to, let's see, slideshow from the current slide. Oh, okay. Is that coming through?
Yeah, I think yeah. it's coming through just fine.
Okay. Oh, thank you. That's great. Okay, so this is the book, The Vast Venus Conspiracy. It was published in 2020. And of course, I was saddened to hear that YouTube, was it YouTube that
Yes,
had taken it
we
off?
we had previously recorded an interview with you on this, and YouTube took that interview down for quote violating um, uh, their uh, principles or their values, but they didn't say why. So
Oh, yeah, yeah. It,
we're going to be posting this on Rumble.
it left me really puzzled as to why they would.
Yeah, they didn't say why. That is good old YouTube.
Well, there are many controversial points in the book. And well, Venus has been attracting a lot of attention lately because of the discovery of phosphenes, pH 3 in the atmosphere of Venus, which can only be generated by living organisms, so far as we know. In addition to the 48 space probes that have been sent to Venus, more than any other planet, and these have um, or even to the moon for that matter. So if it is this dead planet that they want us to believe it is, NASA that is, and other space agencies, then why are they sending most of the space probes over there in the first place? So that's one of the many questions that I bring out in the book. Okay, Rob Potter, he wrote the introduction to the vast Venus conspiracy. And, sadly, he just passed away. And he was a contactee. Like myself, he worked with Gabriel Green and Dr. Frank Stranges. And Gabriel Green, of course, was the president of Amalgamated Flying Saucer Clubs of America, which was the first large contactee group in the really in the world, and it was the director of the Promise Revealed in Mount Shasta, California. So it was always a pleasure working with Rob, and he helped to get the word out about my books and to popularize the message. He first invited me out there in 2016 with Omnek Onek, and we did presentations about Venus, called "From Venus with Love" was the name of that conference. So I was so glad to hear that you're going to have that you're going to uh, have uh, Omnek Onek's book as a topic for discussion in a future program. Okay, then I'm looking at religion and the presence of extraterrestrials. Tracing that all the way back to ancient times. Of course, when the Old Testament refers to the heavenly hosts, what they're referring to are all the spiritual beings and those that populate the heavenly realms, the angels, and so forth. Essentially, gods with a small g. Of course, there's only one supreme God, but that's the general concept. Then I was looking at the Latter-day Saint religion, how Joseph Smith imparted a Gnostic view of the universe in many of the scriptures of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So these presaged Erich von Däniken by more than 130 years. And they provide a lot of key insights about beings on other planets, especially the Pearl of Great Price. There's a lot of Mormon influence in science fiction as well. Have you ever seen Heinlein's uh, book turned into a movie, Starship Troopers? There's a Mormon colony on this distant planet that gets overrun by these bug creatures. And then in the TV show Battlestar Galactica, that was produced by a Mormon, and it involves many concepts that are in the Latter-day Saint Church about colonists coming from a distant solar system and so forth, and an Egyptian connection with an Egyptian motif. So that's something very interesting there. This is a facsimile in the Book of Abraham, in the Pearl of Great Price, and it depicts a funerary text from ancient Egypt, and talks about a stargate connecting various stars and solar systems with a great central sun. And you see these insectoid beings in the center there that control access to these stargates, which are tunnels of light that Joseph Smith said were called fluocies. This is Venus as it was photographed during a flyby of Japan's Akatsuki probe. This was in 2015, and in a flyby of Venus. And it went around the sun, then came back to Venus and went into an orbit and took this picture, beautiful picture. So you could see that in the picture, Venus looks quite a lot like the Earth. And way back in 1967, there was a sheriff, Herb Shermer from Nebraska, who said he was taken aboard a Venusian spacecraft, and that he learned many things about Venus, that parts of it are quite habitable. And he also talked about beings from many different uh, planets and even other solar systems in a confederation that had themselves different colonies that were living on Venus. And I just published an article about that on Lon Strickler's phantomsandmonsters.com. So there's a lot that NASA isn't telling us about Venus, but those in the know recognize Venus as Earth's sister planet. Each each of the two worlds are approximately the same size. There's only 200 miles difference in the diameter of these two worlds, the Earth and Venus. Both have rocky surfaces and water vapor in extensive amounts in their respective atmospheres. We knew that from the research of Dr. Strong at Johns Hopkins University, who sent balloons up above in 1964. Sent he doubted the findings of the Mariner probe, so he's that only measured electrical heat in the atmosphere of Venus on the limb of Venus in the ionosphere, and so he doubted that what they were saying about Venus being too hot, and of course there's more heat there on Venus because it's closer to the sun, but it's not the scorching hell that they would make it out to be, because clear of interference from the Earth's atmosphere, um, measurements of Venus's atmosphere showed that it had extensive amounts of water vapor. And so that was also used when Officer Shermer made that report about being contacted by Venusians and running into Venusians on his patrol, that it wasn't really as far-fetched as people would think it was, because independent studies, a spectrographic analysis showed that there was extensive water on Venus's atmosphere. Okay, this is Dr. J. Allen Hynek. He was the Air Force consultant to Project Blue Book for 22 years. And he's seen here uh, proclaiming in his capacity as a representative of the Air Force that Adamski faked his photograph of a Venusian scout ship, which in his estimation was fabricated with parts of a chicken brooder suspended from a fishing line. Later in life, though, Dr. Hynek would change his tune about UFOs altogether, siding with John A. Keel, the anomalist researcher, and Dr. Jacques Vallée, in maintaining that the objects were real after all, and possibly hailing from another dimension in a parallel universe, as well as from physical realms in outer space. So there's a lot more about Dr. Hynek in that book, The Vast Venus Conspiracy. Of course, um, it seems almost impossible that this information about Venus and other planets being inhabited would be uh, uh, able to be shut down so effectively, but it has been. There you see uh, they're holding up a picture of there's a government committee like the Robertson panel. They're holding up pictures of a Venusian scout ship. That photos there that they're holding up were taken by Madeline Rodefer in 1965, right before George Adamski passed away in Silver Springs, Maryland. So yeah, more space probes have been dispatched to Venus than any other celestial object in space from 4 different countries. So we have the Akatsuki program in Japan. We have the um, Venus Express from the European Union, the Venera probes from Russia, and the Mariner probes and other various probes from the United States. There's a picture of some of the spacecraft that have been sent to Venus already. This is an original Soviet Venera 10 photograph at a 180-degree panorama, taking a picture of the ground at the base of their Venera lander on Venus. And when the picture is straightened out, it doesn't look any different than terrain that you might find in the desert in New Mexico. On October 25th, 1975, the Venera 10 landed on the surface of Venus and did acquire a 180-degree panorama. A technician at the Planetary Society used those images to create this artistic view of what the scene would look like if one were actually standing on the surface of Venus. So you see, it's a varied terrain, and you could see mountains in the distance, a mountain range as far away as 12 miles out. So if really that the atmospheric pressure on Venus was 93 times greater than it is on Earth, like they say say it is, uh, you wouldn't be able to see you wouldn't be able to see anything beyond a few feet. So there's obviously some kind of cover up going on there because the photos don't lie. And uh, the Russians had said that it looked like a sunny day in Moscow in the summer, and if it was that much atmospheric pressure and then the clouds and everything, it should have been totally dark and obscured, and you shouldn't be able to see anything like that. So there's something going on there. And let's say that even if in some parts of Venus, let's say that like on Earth, the atmospheric pressure varies. For example, at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, uh, the bottom in the Pacific Ocean, it's more than 100 atmospheric pressures all the way down there. But there's all kinds of life, like phosphorescent life swimming all around in volcanic vents with temperatures over 940 degrees. So life has a way of adapting, even in the most extreme conditions. So on Earth, we call these extremophiles because they can adapt to life can adapt to even the seemingly most extreme conditions. So I always, you know, have to uh, gather all the facts um, before dismissing the possibilities of life on any planet, even the moon. So, so on the 1st of March of 1982, the Soviet Venera 13 soft landed on Venus in a suspected region of volcanic activity. Following this successful landing on the 5th of March of 1982, another Soviet probe, the Venera 14, also soft landed on Venus a few hundred miles distant from the Venera 13 site. This is Venus from atop a volcanic ridge. The 1982 photo from the Venera 13 shows Venus with clear skies and a mountain range far in the distance. The semi-disk in the foreground is the infamous ejected lens cap from the Russian probe. So radar imaging allows for orthographic view of the Venusian topography. Here's an orthographic view of Venus as centered over the North Pole. The photo comes from files of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California, as taken by the Magellan probe in 1990. The white areas at the pole and around the equator indicate a snow-capped mountain range. This would be at Maxwell Montes region, north of the Aphrodite continent on Venus. So what was interesting about some of the Russian probes is scientists leaked out information that was gathered by the U.S. Air Force in a secret report called Project White Stork from published in Huntington, Alabama, where the rocket base missile command is, and about uh, Russian um, extraterrestrial research to find life on Venus and Mars. And it said that some parts of Venus they had discovered with temperatures of only 84 degrees Fahrenheit. And this was especially below the polar caps, or that they had these dual cyclonic storms that were like perpetual, and they served as a planetary air conditioning for the planet. So there's surface water on Venus. This is Maxwell Monte region at the North Pole, a frozen lake clearly in the Cleopatra impact crater in the upper east quadrant. So Lady Gaga made a song about Venus, and on the album cover with the Venus song, she had a scorpion in the cover art. And so I was wondering, well, what's behind all of that? And then it turns out that this is from Russia, and there was a sign of a life form taken by the Venera 13 Soviet probe in 1982 by Dr. Leonid Kazanformali, a premier space scientist, provided a detailed analysis of the Venera photos taken 30 years previously to a reporter for a prominent Russian news agency in January of 2012. Of the televised images that came in from the Venus probe, Kazanformali declared they all emerge, fluctuate, and disappear. A more thorough account of his findings appeared in the acclaimed Russian science magazine Solar System Research. What if we forget about the current theories about the non-existence of life on Venus? Let's boldly suggest that the object's morphological features would allow us to say that they are living, added the scientist. So one of the bloggers in Lady Gaga's daily website commented that one of the things I love most about Gaga's song Venus is how she interprets the Greek mythology with space and planets. So this is perfect to me. Who can disagree? Long live Lady Gaga. Okay. So many thanks are extended to Lon Strickler of Arcane Radio for the artwork below. Lon first ran my articles on Kenneth Arnold's Venus investigations as a three-part series on his blog, phantomsandmonsters.com. So it turns out that Idaho civilian pilot Kenneth Arnold has a lot of connection with Venus. Besides being credited with starting the flying saucer craze, Idaho pilot Kenneth Arnold was also one of the first UFO researchers. So I take a sneak peek into some of his investigations concerning spacecraft and encounters with Venusians. So extraterrestrials are attracted to our beaches, and Kenneth Arnold had one article in there about a lumberjack in Washington State who encountered a crew of Venusians that were skinny dipping in the off the coast of Washington State. They landed their saucer and were skinny dipping in the ocean there, and that account is in the book. Also, there's a warning from Venus: don't lose control of your technology. This is very important because we're at a critical junction here in our own development. We can't let our technology outpace our spiritual understanding and maturity, and this could be disastrous because what good would all this technology, advanced technology, do if we lost our soul and eventually lost our sovereignty in a war with the machines? That would be very costly, setting back the cosmic evolution of our planet by thousands of years. Also, Kenneth Arnold, he investigated a case in the Sierras in California where some Venusians were actually on vacation, um, and they were riding horses around there, and the saucers that came down, and these campers that came across them and encountered them. And Kenneth Arnold was very fascinated by that, and so his report is in there on the Venusian equestrians. It was along a ridge and trail like this one in the vicinity of Moose Lake along the Great Western Divide that the Knights and Hallidays, vacationing families, encountered Venusian tourists back in 1955. And here's a letter from Mr. Oscar and Mrs. Kitty Knight of to to them from Carl J. Bueller of Visalia, California, um, thanking them for the information provided to the Ground Observer Corps and the park rangers and so forth, and also the interest that Major Donald E. Kehoe, a former United States Marine Corps major and the director of the largest civilian UFO group at that time, NICAP, National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena, had in the case of the Venusians coming down in the Sierras. Venusians love aquatic activities. So here's just a picture I found from the movie Cocoon, 20th Century Fox in 1985. So how much did this movie reflect the Venusians and other extraterrestrials' affinity for aquatic activities and environments? Just the wide variety of ecosystems on the Earth might be the reason for attracting many extraterrestrials to come and visit our planet, just even for the purpose of vacationing. And this idea of the Earth as a vacation spot, George Adamski talked about it and wrote about it many times on his in his books. Okay, here's Omnek Onek, the ambassador of hope and love from Venus. She'll be one of the speakers along with myself at Mount Shasta coming up on the 27th of June through the 3rd of July. And um, at the From Venus with Love conference. So Omnek Onek, as the ambassador from Venus, brings a message of hope and love to all the inhabitants of the earth. And stay tuned to this channel because Alfred and I will be discussing her mission and some of the work that she does in a future podcast. This is my friend Frank Chile in New Jersey. He was very close to Dr. Frankie Strange's, the Assembly of God minister from Van Nuys, California, who popularized the information about Commander Valiant Thor and other Venusians here on Earth, and also associated with Howard Menger of High Bridge, New Jersey, an early contactee of the 50s and 60s. Here's a photograph of Frank Chile, and he shared information in the June 2020, it should say, not 1920. A conference about Albert Coe's, the 100th anniversary of his June 1920 encounter with a Venusian fisherman up in the woods of Ontario, Canada. So that was very interesting because he went up there with a friend, and there was a flying saucer that had landed in a Adamski type craft that he describes in his earlier writings in the 1920s, 30 years before Adamski. And this Venusian was out fishing and on a ledge, and he got hurt, and some of his equipment was destroyed, and Albert Coe went to help him out. And then the Venusian became his fast friend and took him to a safe house in Philadelphia area, and eventually took him to Venus. And he wrote a whole book um, about it. And his story is in the Vast Venus Conspiracy book. Albert Coe is that one. So George Adamski um, talked about Venusians taking excursions on vacations here on Earth, and so I'm just ask you where did you spend your summer vacation? Maybe this summer you might want to come and join Omnek and I up in Mount Shasta. Here's another case of extraterrestrial and interdimensional visitors from Venus and other spheres of existence showing up at sand dunes and a beach in the British Isles in Wales. And that was investigated by the Mutual UFO Network and reported on in the London Daily Mirror of 5 September 2017. So here's Adamski on the Venusian philosophy of life, and it's very interesting. Adamski was the first ambassador to outer space and the author of several UFO books. He wrote Flying Saucers Farewell in 1960, and on page 74 said, one studies to learn that he might more fully live according to the will of the infinite and thereby progress along the pathway to eternal life. Little ones are taught in their homes as well as in such public institutions. One never grows so old as to stop attending classes of instruction. So this is about how life is on Venus. Periodic travel on their planet and elsewhere through the cosmos in their gigantic luxury space liners is enjoyed by every individual on Venus, regardless of age. They have learned well that although one can learn many things through study of records and miniature replicas, travel is a source of unending practical education, which gives not only pleasure, but lessons of lasting pleasure never forgotten. I myself have been to 48 different countries so far, living and working uh, there. And so I consider myself a planetary citizen. And I think that hopefully we'll all start moving in that direction. And we should take advantage in this incarnation to get around and experience as many different countries and cultures and peoples as possible, because this is the kind of thing that helps to promote understanding and peace on this planet and really throughout the universe. Okay, there's 3 chapters of the Vast Venus Conspiracy that deal with my experiences with various extraterrestrials, and um, some of them that have been in contact with other contactees as well, and encourage you to check them out. Also, many have explained, like Omnek Onek, and as well as the wife of the Prime Minister of Japan, who does a radio program on ultradimensionality and so forth, and uh, Lady Ching Hai in Taiwan, who's a metaphysician and a spiritual leader. They've all explained about, and oh, as well as John A. Keel and Jacques Vallée and others, talking about other dimensions that interact with our own, where everything exists in the now, as well as the physical worlds. For example, um, in uh, the Borderland Sciences Research Association, Mead Lane, in the late 1940s, explained that there are actually 60 planets in our solar system, although we only know of 12 of them. But there's 48 more that are unseen because they exist at higher vibrations, where molecules are moving much and atoms are moving uh, much faster. I have to say that just a couple days ago there was a coronal mass ejection, and uh, it's one of the largest ones to date. And and so you could see the aurora borealis even from lower latitudes. But one thing that happens when you have a coronal mass ejection like that, it supercharges the magnetosphere of our planet. And this tends to cause vibrational shifts, this supercharging, and opens up portals. And then that particular day, I was with Anna French, who wrote the introduction to my latest book on Pennsylvania and the paranormal vortex, about all kinds of paranormal phenomena, cryptids, Bigfoot, UFOs, ghosts, spectral apparitions of all kinds throughout the state of Pennsylvania. But we were in the Allegheny Cemetery outside of Pittsburgh, on the northeast side of Pittsburgh, and the day after that occurred, that coronal ejection, and everything was very unusual. We went to take a picture of this angel, a scribing angel. There's a statue there of Angel Vertiel, and as we approached the place, there was all around the vicinity, just around that statue, there was 3 dozen of these Canadian geese. There were 2 deers that came right up to us, walking out of the woods, and stood at a standstill for 10 minutes while we were by the angel taking the pictures. And then a groundhog came from behind this one tombstone and back, and we saw this groundhog. Um, and it was like a Saint Francis of Assisi moment. It was, it was really weird. But I chalked that up to the as an after effect of the coronal discharge, supercharging the magnetosphere. Okay. So the Venusians have been prodding us for countless of millennia, as well as other extraterrestrials, incrementally helping us to advance our technology. And so here's a cartoon that I found. It's H.G. Wells and Jules Verne talking about their different inventions. Thought that was pretty funny. So ancient aliens, they never left. In the book, The Vast Venus Conspiracy, I discussed the ET presence on Earth and important spiritual concepts. And this is a picture taken as a seminary student at the Community of Christ Temple in Independence, Missouri. I like the picture of the star there, representative of the evening star. So oops, yeah, oops, let me go back there. So this is a prophecy in the Bible about the latter days, about signs in the stars and distress on the earth among nations, with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring. And I do believe that we're living in times of great transition, possibly times of tribulation coming ahead, and that our space brothers and sisters are here to help us. This was Gene Dixon's UFO prophecy. The famed astrologer and psychic Gene Dixon declared in June of 1954, 71 years ago, that the flying saucer occupants are expeditioners from an order of intelligence not known on Earth, that they're here to help us. This is Aura Reigns as the Queen of Space in 1957. Mrs. Evelyn Smith attended numerous flying saucer conventions around the United States throughout the 1950s. Now, Evelyn Smith was a friend of, um, of Dr. George Hunt Williamson, who took the footprints of Orthon uh, with the Adamski Party in November of 1952. And he wrote in his books that he suspected that she was an extraterrestrial. And here she's seen at the fourth Interplanetary Spacecraft Convention at Landers Field in California on the weekend of 11 through 12 May of 1957. It was often rumored by many attendees at these events that she was the mysterious Commander Aura Reigns in disguise. So when we get around to the second part of this program, I'll provide you the documentation to prove that. Always the shizzle. Clarion Moon Base Commander Aura Reigns momentarily loses her traditional beret and lets her hair down. This photo appeared in the November 1957 issue of Argosy magazine. Now, what's interesting about Evelyn Smith is she was a science fiction writer, and one of the books that she wrote was called, the stories that she wrote in science fiction was called The Venus Trap. And it was about a time on Earth when the people of Earth asked the Venusians to take over for them because they'd made such a mess of this planet. But then after a time, even though um, the people of Earth were living in a paradise planet, the fact that they were no longer calling the shots. It was a benevolent dictatorship. They organized and rebelled against the control uh, of the Venusians, and that was. And then in the story, it was okay with the Venusians because they didn't want to be glorified babysitters for the people of Earth anyway. They wanted us to develop our own systems to maintain our own autonomy and develop a civilization along our own lines and not just copy theirs. So there's a lot of stuff that took place in the 1950s that's very profound, and I feel it a pleasure to bring this information to light in my Venus books. Then there was a Portuguese encounter in September of 1954 when Cesar Cardoso and his friends from the Portuguese mountain village politely declined the offer for them to step inside a Venusian scout ship. The Venusians explained to the Portuguese villagers that they were coming down to Earth to collect agricultural samples to take them back to Venus, to transplant them there to help them with their agricultural program. Similar encounters like this with Venusians have also been taken place in Russia and other countries and are documented in my second book. It's rockets to Venus. This is The Invaders, starring Roy Thinnis. Too close to truth for comfort. Hollywood pulled the plug on a popular science fiction television program that ran on ABC TV from 1967 to 1968. And Roy Thinnes appeared with the Congress of Scientific Ufologists convention in New York in 1967, as well as gave interviews and spent some time with Dr. Frank E. Stranges. And that's documented in the book as well. Science fiction or science fact, from the reels of Hollywood's 1950s retro sci-fi to real-time reports of UFOs, California leads the nation in sparking our imaginations about extraterrestrial life. So this is the soft disclosure from Hollywood. It's nothing new. Um, Movies like The Day the Earth Stood Still. We have um, uh, Desmond Leslie from co-author with George Adamski as a technical advisor. Earth versus the Flying Saucers, Major Donald E. Kehoe, and then Jacques Vallée and Dr. Hynek. Dr. Hynek makes a cameo appearance in Close Encounters of the Third Kind in Columbia Pictures, 1977. So all these movies dealing with extraterrestrials visiting Earth, they do have a ring of truth, and it's that soft disclosure that's helping prepare our consciousness to accept the arrival of extraterrestrials among us. Precious bodily fluid. Sometimes the Venusians can get just as thirsty as Florida Senator Marco Rubio, taking a big swing of water while delivering his response. So I have documented cases where Venusians come down to take up water from water towers, lakes, and so forth. Uh, many cases are documented there. This is a lecture that I gave in Paradise, California. In 2017, I wrote my book, um, Cosmic Rays, Excellent Venus Adventure. And there's a whole chapter in there about the connection of the Venusians to Paradise, California. And it was written and published 2 years before the big fire burned everything down. So I went to all the UFO clubs and sources of information, newspaper archives, and everything. Got the uh, documentation of many um, contactees coming up there to speak at UFO clubs about the Venus connections. And then um, 2 years later, the whole town burned down and all that information with it. So I think that was like a divinely appointed mission for me to go there and collect that information and write that in the book. So this is me at the Paradise Friends of the Public Library on the night of 17 October 2017. More reports of UFOs and close encounters of every kind emerged from Paradise and other cities in Butte County than any other areas of California, including Mount Shasta. Glorious UFO history was reintroduced. So I was able to reintroduce the city of Paradise to its glorious past in the history of flying saucers over California. So that's me with my third book, Cosmic Rays Excellent Venus Adventure, where I'm on the cover of the book depicts me with a Venusian friend, Dolores Barrios. Then another subject is uh, the information coming out of Landers Field in California at Giant Rock when from WOR in New York, 710 on the AM dial, Long John Nebel came out there to one of the conventions to interview all of the contactees, doing a live broadcast from California. This is Long John Neville. His controversial talk show is called Party Line. Uh, Long John was born in 1911 and lived through 1978. And his favorite subject for interviews was UFO contactees, especially those that were in contact with beautiful Venusian women like Howard Menger. He liked to interview him and Truman Bethurum and so forth. Flying Saucers Serious Business, the Mutual Broadcasting Company also had a correspondent, Frank Edwards, that would frequently cover UFO reports on his daytime radio program. And Edwards would cover it during the day, and Long John during the night. The flying saucer crazed public demanded and received WOR's incorporation of Long John Neville's program in response to the popularity of Frank Edwards' program on the Mutual Broadcasting Network. Information is the currency of democracy, said Thomas Jefferson, and silence is the voice of complicity. So take it back. Oh, I hope the people that banned this telecast the first time are paying attention to this, because we have a right to know. This stuff from the past is important, and it shouldn't be buried. Here's a photo from my Venus files of August C. Roberts. It was given to Otto Binder for publication in an unpublished book. It never got published. Here's the commander of the Clarion Moon Base, Aura Raines, being interviewed by WOR New York radio personality Long John Neville on the right on his visit to Giant Rock, California for the 4th Interplanetary Spacecraft Convention on the 12th of May, 1957. The gentleman to the left is Kelvin Rowe, who is also a contactee in contact with beings from throughout the solar system and also beyond from Alpha Centauri system, Alpha Proxima Centauri, like Gabriel Green. Howard Menger, the New Jersey contactee, born in 1922 in Brooklyn. Then his family moved out to Highbridge, New Jersey, to a farm and had an apple orchard there when he was growing up. And he began to meet Venusians landing in a spacecraft on their property. And his parents and people in town thought they were angels that were coming down. He was a frequent guest on Long John's programs. And he also wrote 2 books about flying saucers, The High Bridge Incident and From Outer Space to You. Also, George Adamski was a frequent guest on Long John's program. And here he is describing the different types of craft from Venus that come to our planet. The large carrier ships or motherships. Adamski coined the term motherships. And you see the smaller scout craft or ventlas in the vicinity of the mothership. They operate in the vicinity of motherships or in the Earth's atmosphere, where they can access the magnetic fields, and that causes the ionization around the craft to make them light up like Christmas trees. So revolution by love or the sword, it's all the same to the powers that be. That was the message from the movie, The Last Temptation of Christ. But that was the message of the contactees, was revolution by love, and apparently it was just too much for the powers that be, because gradually the message of the contactees was suppressed. Sometimes at Giant Rock or other conventions and conferences with contactees, there'd be more FBI agents than other people in attendance. So sadly, by time the by time the 1960s came around, early 1960s, with the Betty and Barney Hill and all the abduction stuff, the contactees were suppressed and their message was on the way out. So I'm very happy to write these books to keep that message alive. So one of Howard Menger's friends was Dominic Lucchesi, and he also met Ora Raines out in New Jersey. He was an electronics and radio wizard, had his own QSL card and ham radio station. And here's a picture of him. He was also a member of the first UFO group that got shut down by the activities of the Men in Black, is Albert K. Bender's International Flying Saucer Bureau, IFSB. So Dominic was their electronics consultant, and this picture was taken in his home in New Jersey, either in 1952 or 1953. I couldn't pinpoint it exactly. Okay, so there's going to be in the next podcast, for part 2 of this, we're going to see some more photos and drawings in the 1950s of Ora Raines, which I think will answer all of your questions about her at the beginning of the program. And the next part will be mostly about Venusian contacts with individuals here on Earth.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. Are you going to stop sharing? Oh, good. Well, thank you very much for that, Ray, Dr. Keller. So we will be in contact to set up 2 programs. One program will be to schedule a special program on the literature of Omnek. Could you say her name again?
Omnek Onek.
Omnek Onek, her autobiography and spiritual diary, and Lady Columba, her book. I was listening to her audiobook last night, and she talks about a shift in the Earth's axis and all kinds of stuff.
Yes, that the one who did the narration for that is Terry Springs, the weather woman from the CBS affiliate in Las Vegas.
Right, right. And then I'll also contact you to schedule a second program, which will be your PowerPoint on your 2-week, if I got the journey to Venus, an account of how you got there and back, the places you visited, the people and events you saw, descriptions of them, etc.
I would be very happy to do that. And if anybody is interested in coming out to Mount Shasta and meeting myself and Omnek Onek this 27th of July, or 27th of June through the 3rd of July, they can check Rob Potter's site, thepromiserevealed.net, to get information.
So people are carrying on Rob Potter's work. Who is carrying that on?
That would be the ones who helped him organize the conferences before.
Oh, I see. So it's at thepromiserevealed.net, and there's an email there.
Yes, phone numbers and email. His son, Rob's son, is also organizing it.
Oh, good.
So this conference will be a memorial to his life.
Oh, excellent. And we'll also put that in the notes to this video. The dates again are
The 27th of June through the 3rd of July.
of July. Excellent. Now, one further question, Dr. Keller. Where can people get your books? How can they do that?
The easiest way is to just type Keller Venus on Amazon in the bar at the top, and then uh, they'll all come up, or most of them will come up. They'll come up. And then I'm also writing, I've also written 3 books so far with Fred Saluga, who is the East Coast director of the Mutual UFO Network, on West Virginia Paranormal Gateway, Pennsylvania Pennsylvania UFO Portal, and then Pennsylvania in the Paranormal Vortex.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, and we look forward to your next 2 programs. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you, Alfred. Much appreciated.
Okay.